Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kim Barrett Show. I'm your host, Kim Barrett, and on today's episode, we are joined by a repeat guest, someone who's joined us a few episodes ago, but the amazing Steph Gorton is here to share with us a whole heap of insights. If you're someone who's growing a business, if you're using content to grow your business and you're using platforms like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, this is an episode you will not want to miss. And of course, if we can ever help you with your marketing, head over to our free Facebook community, www.joinmygroup.com.au. But until then, let's jump into the show. Steph, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Always nice to come on and chat with you, Kim. It's always a pleasure.
It's great. You're one of the very few repeat offenders on the podcast, like probably a few hundred episodes ago. So it was good to have you back. And
I remember being so nervous for that episode.
That was good. That was in person. We did it back in the old office. That was a good one. You did it. You did a great job. And your skills and probably the amount of podcasts you've done has probably increased dramatically since then.
Yeah, for sure. That was exactly. I was just remembering that. I was like, damn, that was a long time ago. And I remember I had like clammy hands, like full Eminem.
I love it. And so, Steph, if they haven't seen that episode, obviously things have also changed a lot since then. But if I met you at a party and we were chatting and we didn't know each other already, and I said, what is it that you actually do? What's your go-to answer these days?
These days, yeah, you know what? It's interesting. This is an ever-changing thing, I think, for anybody in any industry all the time. I'm sure yours would be wildly different from when we spoke 100 episodes ago also. But for me right now, I would say that I help online coaches to scale to 7 figures without spending more than 30 hours a week in their business, specifically.
Nice. And I do like the piece on the end there, because obviously a lot of people, it's like, many people can scale to 7 figures spending 75 hours a week in their business doing stuff. So I do like that little piece on the end. And obviously you've grown yourself. You've had businesses before. You've had to work through that. Like, at what point did you come to the point where you're like, actually, like a handful of hours a week is all I really want to work? Because you can kind of get stuck in that loop where you're like, must work, must do this, more work equals more money equals more of this. Like, what was that turning point for you?
Yeah, I had a business coach who wasn't you. You were an exceptional business coach for speaking to simplicity and constantly being like, okay, but how could we do that in an easier way? And what would be an easier way of doing that? You were really great with that. But I had another business coach that was kind of like, just follow this exact model and you will have a 7-figure business and the kind of promises that you'll do it within 12 months. And so we did, and I followed that exact model. And it was probably around I think it probably happens for other people a little earlier, but for me, it was probably around the 1.2 million mark that I really started to feel that. And it wasn't the amount of money. It was the way that we'd structured the business. So we just had a lot of team members, a lot of moving parts. We had just really inefficient systems. We had really inefficient, the business model just wasn't set up correctly. Because like it is when you run your first few businesses, you just kind of stick it all together and hope that it scales and then burn it all down at every level that it doesn't scale correctly. So that's kind of what we did. But yeah, there was probably a point, I would say probably around 2021 for me, where I sat on the couch and I was like, I think it was probably just after tax time. And I looked at my P&L and I realized that I'd paid myself like 120 grand. On top of that, we'd made 100 grand profit. And I was like, is that all? Like, what? I've worked like painstakingly hard for this amount of money, which just didn't feel like a lot of money. So yeah, 7 figures in revenue, but there was not a lot left over afterwards. And I was like, there's got to be a better way.
100%. And as you say, it's like, it's interesting because obviously there's many different ways that you can do it. And it's, I'm sure there's some businesses, maybe like a SaaS business, something like that, where they're like, cool, top line revenue, pump it as hard as we can because they're going to sell it later. And that's, that's all well and good. But for most people that would have, I suppose you would call it as well, like a business that's a lifestyle business, i.e. your life is running your business and it's part of your life. And it's not like I have a job and a business and it's all separate as part of what you do. It's like you deserve to be compensated pretty well for that if it's going to be a full part of your life.
Yeah. And I think like there are people with just different processes. Like I've got a good friend called Lisa and she's planning for a 10 mil exit. And so like that's a very different process as well. Like that's her whole thing is like build, reinvest, like just like, you know, work as many hours, plug as many holes, like, and because she can see an end in sight. Whereas I think for me and, you know, definitely for me, it's more so around like, okay, this is probably what I'm going to do forever, or some version of this, or entrepreneurship is going to be in my life in some way forever. And so I want it to be something that complements my life and not something that, you know, I'm not planning on a 10 mil exit. We have no intention to sell, none of those things. And so it's really like about setting it up so it's actually sustainable for us in the long run.
Mm. And for you guys, like, what are the key areas that you look to? Because obviously you said, like, you know, your goal is helping people in that 30 hours a week or less. I know some weeks, you know, you get to work way less than that, which is amazing as well. Like, with the time that you have being a multiple 7-figure business owner, what do you spend your time focused on? Like, what do those hours look like for you if you were to chunk them around?
Yeah. So I'm pretty fortunate, for anyone who doesn't know that's listening. I also have a business partner who's my husband. And so we divide and conquer in terms of what we do. Tim's definitely more the CEO of the company, which is relatively new in our world. So Tim's more the CEO and I'm more, kind of more director of marketing, head of marketing, and coaching. So we have a coaching business, of course. I would say that I have the most coaching, well, I definitely have the most coaching contact hours. I'm definitely responsible for client happiness, anything that's directly client related. So any of our retreats, events, workshops, presentations, any of those things will definitely be where I would spend most of my time, alongside all of our marketing. So outside of Facebook ads, which is definitely more of Tim's genius, he learned from the best. But outside of Tim, who does our Facebook ads, pretty much the entire marketing operation is me. So, and I'm definitely at the moment, for the most part, the face of the brand. So I do a lot of like the way that I chunk my time in the hours is coaching. I spend about 8 to 10 hours a week on coaching every week. Outside of that, I will obviously create all the content for all of the platforms. So we're on multiple platforms. We send 7 emails a week. So writing all those emails out, making sure that, you know, any projects that we're working on that are client facing will be what I'm working on. But predominantly I work 9 till 2-ish most days. But side note, there are seasons of hustle, or I call them seasons of hustle, where like you can coast for a bit and then, you know, like you can't, in entrepreneurship, I don't know if there's I haven't met anyone yet that can coast for too long unless you have a really good infrastructure built up around, like with team and stuff. They can really run it for you, but we run really lean. So we don't have a big team. We have a couple of salespeople, someone that helps out a bit with social media and a virtual assistant, and that's it. And so because of that, it does require quite a lot of our time in the seasons where we're trying to grow. So we're in a season right now where we're trying to grow. And so we're probably spending, I would say 35, maybe 40 hours a week on the growth of the business. And there are times where it's up to 60, just depending on the season.
100%. And I think that's it. It's like, as you say, anyone that will share anything with you on the internet and say, you know, this is how it is, there's certain times where it's not, because it can't be fixed, right? Things can't be fixed. It has to be a ability to kind of change and push. And as you say, if you want to grow, like obviously maintaining or keeping the status quo, like it's relatively easy to coast. But if you want to push and, you know, I know you guys have got some big goals and you guys are pushing out tons more content and increasing the frequency of that as well. Like it does take work to kind of get that up to the next level and then keep going from there.
Totally. And I think like we were having this conversation before, like off air before, but like you learn and things change. And so you have to adapt. And so things that you think will work later on don't work down the track. And so you have to jump in and fix them and put out all the fires and create a new process and create a new system and then train everyone on the system. And then, you know, so there are those seasons where like you implement something, you test it, you try it, does it work or it doesn't work, and you have to fix it and you have to, you know, or the economy changes or people's buying and spending behaviors change. And so because of those things, like you have to adapt things. You have to adapt sales processes and marketing processes and things like that. So I think it's just that the nature of the beast is constant change.
100%. And we were talking before as well, like you've spent a lot of time focusing on the marketing, on the content side of things. And, you know, I know you've mentioned to me a few times, but like, how are you seeing the world of content change? I know that you guys are on nearly every platform. You guys have amped up your like frequency of content, but how have you found that? Cause I know some people before were just like, get content up, any content up, put it out there and just be seen as much as you can. But even that now, it's like, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have growth, followers, leads, sales. Like, what have you kind of seen on that side of the fence?
It's interesting. At the moment, we have about 225 clients. And so we see the back end of a lot of marketing. And one thing that we've seen that has definitely is a bit of a hangover from the last couple of years is definitely this, we have a KPI tracker that all of our clients fill out. And, if something's not going well for them, if they're not making as much money as they want to be, or if they're not growing, or if their finances are going backwards for whatever reason, they'll send us their KPI tracker along with it tracks everything from where they're spending, where they're marketing, all their leads, sales, conversion rates, all the things. And one of the things that we've noticed is that they're doing all the things. They're posting 5 days a week and they're sending 3 emails a week and they've got podcasts and they're doing all the things. And so from a kind of an outward glance, you're like, well, if you're doing all the things, they're running ads. If you're doing all the things and you have a good offer and it's a good price point and we know that you're a legend because we're hanging out with you all the time, then why are people not buying? And so then we go a little bit deeper and we actually look at the emails and we look at the socials and we look at the posts and we look at the things and we're like, oh, that's why. Because the quality is not there. And so I think that kind of throw it up and it'll done as good, better than perfect approach when it comes to organic marketing, when it comes to ads, when it comes to emails. I think that works to a point, maybe up to maybe 10K a month. And then from there, honestly, if you're not optimizing on the front end, you're just adding to the noise because so many people are just doing that. The easiest way that you can cut through right now is just by doing slightly elevated content.
And
but you'll see it with ads as well.
And what does that mean to you? Elevated from what perspective?
We had this conversation. I think we're also transitioning away from really extreme, if you're looking at I love Instagram. It's my favorite platform. Actually, TikTok is slowly taking over. Not for me to be a creator yet, but I really do love spending time on TikTok. It's very addictive.
I'm on there stacking my reels, my TikToks every day. I'm like, oh, this is cool. There's so much cool stuff on there.
Dude, I've lost so much time in TikTok recently, but Instagram is my favorite platform. So it's the platform I prefer producing on. It's the platform that most of my clients would also hang out on. And so I prefer to hang out there. And I think we're seeing a trend away from really complex put together kind of reels where there's transitions and all this stuff. Yes, there needs to be movement because we need to keep people interested. But at the end of the day, elevated content is can you record on a better camera? You definitely need a mic. You definitely need to get it edited and add captions and those sorts of things that kind of, don't use a filter this. It really I think even B-roll is starting to, I think B-roll can work as long as there's spoken audio over the top. But I think even B-roll, I think we're going to see a move away from kind of standardized crappy imagery, B-roll with some text, some whimsical text over the top. This is not helpful content. And outside of the world of Instagram, which is the only place that's being perpetuated, that is not helpful content on the internet. You don't go to YouTube and see that crap. You don't see it on TikTok even. Even TikTok is at some level it's more informative or fun because it's more natural. It's more organic. And so I think that we will see a move away from that. And I think when I talk about elevated content, I'm just talking about literally the quality of the production. And if you just dial in the quality of the production, you're also going to have to think more about the quality of the content just by nature, just by wanting to dial in the quality of production. And so, I'm guilty of it. If you go back and look at my reels from 3 months ago, there was just crappy filtered B-roll and shitty text over the top. And, that got us so far until it stopped working.
100%. And I was listening to a call the other day with a guy called Tom Nosk, I think is his last name. And he's got about 400,000 followers, something like that. Does a couple launches a year. Makes lots of money. And he was saying he is always he keeps his content the same because that's how he likes to do it, which is basically this face to cam stuff talking, but he's got really good, I think his whole lighting and audio setup is into the 20, 30 of thousands of, he's a creator, from that perspective. But he said all he did was content, something like this, talking to camera, a few variations. If you go back a year ago, he was stuck at 300,000 followers for a year. Still put out good content and things like that. And he's now I've seen the shift where talking head guy has come back into play, especially on Instagram, and went from 300 to 450,000, huge wait list for his programs and stuff like that. But he's the the style has gone. Because if you're always chasing trends and doing it, obviously a trend is only by the definition of the name. It's like it finishes at some point, right? It becomes untrendy or people don't use it. So it's like, then it falls back onto that message and quality. And, you know, you can even just see even the background where you are now, you've got the nice lighting at the bottom. It's like clean background and you guys do a phenomenal job at the production. On top of like, obviously there's that side, but types of content, because obviously you can just do information and teach people stuff all day, or you can sit there and like spout motivational quotes, or you can sit there and like do a how-to in every single piece of content. But like, where's the balance that you see that helps not only to generate like warmth, but then obviously that we have to make sure it correlates to sales?
Totally. We are huge on this because I really like, you know, even Tim right now, like my husband, I think he's only got like, not only, I mean, he's worked really, really hard for this, like 9,400 followers that he's got or something like that. Like it's been a real slog for him to get to that point. And it's crazy how much money can come out of a small audience. Like you don't need 100,000, 60,000. Like I think I've got 25,000, you know, Tim's got 9,000. Like I think our total combined audience is like maybe 40 or 50K in total across all platforms in all places. And, you know, we're on track, I think, for 2.5 this year. So like, I know for sure that it doesn't just require you to have, you know, a big audience, but what's the most important thing is like, yeah, the kinds of content that you post. So we, at the moment, and this is just this is like a what's working right now. And I think the way that this has shifted is just recently shifted based on current buying behavior patterns of the community of the economy right now, because obviously things are, you know, getting tighter. And as things get tighter, more sharks come out because they get more desperate. And so we've got a lot of people, and you will be hearing this all the time. People have a huge reluctance to buy more than ever, that we're hearing of through our own channels, and also through all of our clients are saying like, oh, they got burnt by a coach before, so now, you know, they're reluctant to purchase, or they had an accountant who did this wrong, and so now they're reluctant to purchase. And so we're seeing a lot more of that, people being really cautious of where they spend their money. So the kinds of content that we are producing right now, a lot of talking heads. So we're about to go into a huge talking head phase as well. So back into that talking head. And the main reason is just trust. It's just trust. They just want to see that you know what you're talking about at some level. And one of those will hit for somebody and make them be like, oh God, that's my person. So talking heads for us really work. The other thing that really works for me, and this is just for my audience, I wouldn't say this is for everybody's audience, but because it definitely doesn't work for Tim, quote posts work really well. And mostly the reason that quote posts work well for me is because that's where we get probably a lot of our new audience will come in. So for us, like quote posts are really shareable. So people share them, tag us, and then we grow. That's pretty much how it works. And so we're getting a lot of new people come in through quote posts. We're hooking them with our talking heads. And then the other one that I use is carousels. And I used to pretty much save my carousels for two things. One will be educational. So here's 5 ways to, or here's the number one. I did 5 Instagram audits this week and here's what I saw go wrong. And it'll be like a 10-page carousel, or it'll be something vulnerable. Like I shared one today, it was like, and I hate vulnerability. I hate that word, but it's something like a personal story or a personal experience is what I mean by that, where I'll talk about like how I had business anxiety a couple of weeks ago and what I went through to get out of it. So I think that they're the 3 types of contents that I am currently sharing. And the reason they work is the carousels make people like you, the talking heads make people trust you, and the quote posts get people in the door. That's what's working for us right now.
100%. And I think it is as well. Like I was speaking to a buddy about this the other day, where he was like the industries that he thought were going to do bad in 2025 onwards. And he manages like hundreds of $1 million in spend, works across a whole heap of different industries. And one was definitely business coaching. And I was like, interesting. And I was like, why? And he's like, because of the amount of he's like, everyone that's already been doing well at it will continue to do well at it. It's not like it's going to fall off a cliff, but with so many new people coming in, it's hard to separate yourself. And I was like, just thinking as you were speaking, I was like, to me, I always liken it back to like marketing principles that are the foundations. The biggest one is market sophistication. It's like, as the market gets more sophisticated, i.e. more competitors, more people come in, more competition, they have to resonate with a person. Like ideation and connection to a person is the only way to differentiate yourself. Kind of like what Apple did, what they did with like smoking and cigarettes and stuff when they had to try and make it cool back when, obviously, before they knew it would kill you and cancerous. Like they made you, like you had to connect. You like, I wanted to be like the Marlboro Man or like this or like that. So you have to have that connection point. So as there's more competition, It's the only way to do it. And I think the benefit of that for people such as yourself, for people that have been around for a long time, is like you actually have runs on the board. You know what you're talking about. So it's going to be easier to stand out, I think, even more so. But it makes sense because a cold person coming in sees you, sees person B who's not done this very long at all, you know, puts up a similar quote post, and comes through. But then once they see that, the talking head, they see the actual results you're able to generate, that you actually have knowledge and understanding, it's chalk and cheese. So I think versus before, where not that there wasn't as much competition, but it was much less noisy. And I think there's more people turning to it. Like, it makes sense that that's the way. And I think you do a phenomenal job at separating yourself from the market there as well.
And you're right, though, it takes time. And so and I think the reason it takes time is because you don't really know yourself. Like, there's so much you're learning as you're growing a business, and, you know, what do you stand for and what do you not, and what do you really believe in and what do you not? And the more that you uncover those things, the easier it is to create content on what are the things, that 3 things you love to speak about the most, and just speak about that stuff. But more to your point as well, like, we spend a lot every single day on our stories, both on Instagram and Facebook. We will go very, very hard on proof. So we share lots of screenshots of client wins, not just our own wins. We practically don't even talk about our own wins that much anymore. We practically only share client wins. We showcase that people are signing up into our programs. We, you know, share video testimonials of our clients. And so we're constantly just seeding this, like, this is not just like fluffy, really clever copy or marketing. Like, these are real people with real results that, you know, you could literally reach out to right now and see how the experience is. So I think that if you do get real results for clients, and even if you do, but you're not showcasing that, like, showcase it or find a way to showcase it. Like, we have a fitness client. She was like, yeah, my clients just don't send me before and afters. And I was like, well, it's because you haven't made that the absolute minimum standard. And if you incentivize that, or you found a way to make that a thing, and you shared more of them, people would want to be more of your success stories. And she found that when she kind of made those changes, all of a sudden she was getting more and more clients sending her test, like, before and afters. And then she was able to, like, share them on her stories. So I think we just need to normalize it too.
And I feel like sometimes people often forget. They're like, oh, but I shared something about that yesterday, or I did something about that then. And it's like, well, no one's getting 100% of the people that watch their stories to watch this, like, that are followers to watch their stories, or had that, maybe they saw that one yesterday or they didn't. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to check who saw which story and, like, oh, if I posted it, you know what I mean? Like, that you've got to be comfortable in sharing the same thing pretty similarly quite often, because not everyone sees it. And it's like, otherwise, because some people might be like, oh, what if I've only got 5 testimonials or case studies? It's like, well, there's 5 days of the week for you, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can still share that, and then next week put it in different order. Like, doesn't really, you know, like, you can still share it regularly.
People don't even remember. Like, Kim, I couldn't tell you what you posted on your stories yesterday. And it's not because I don't care. It's because I'm also consuming so much stuff. Yeah. And second of all, most people only care about themselves. Like, most people go on Instagram to watch their own stories back, and then accidentally fall into watching other people's stories, you know? So I think, you know, when it comes to, social media, like more is, like, definitely, if you only have 5 testimonials, share all 5 all the time.
Yeah, 100%. And so from what I'm hearing there is, like, yes, content is good, but you have to make sure you're hitting those different content, like, pillars, if you will, where it's like building the trust, bringing in the new audience, building the understanding that you can actually do what you say you can do. Mm-hmm. And then from there, of course, like, every now and again, there's a content that's going to have call to action in it, if they don't all already, that's going to bring them in to take the next step in your world, right?
Totally. Yeah. We've been really exploiting ManyChat recently. So that's been.
I love it.
It's so good.
Did you the summit that they did the other day?
No, I didn't.
They did a huge summit. So they had, like, all the best, like, people that so if anyone doesn't know, ManyChat is a automation tool that can tie into Instagram DMs, Messenger DMs, and you can do a whole bunch of automations through there. So yeah, they just had a huge summit. It was like 20 or 30,000 people registered for it. But I'll see you can get the replay. I'll send it to you, but it's amazing. And
it's crazy.
Again, it helps speed things up. So if someone wants something, again, I'm a big believer. If someone wants something and they have a problem, and they, like, if the call to action is going to help them somewhat solve it, they want it when they want it. Not like, I'll get back to you between 9 and 4 business hours type thing. It's so, middle of the night, I wake up and it's like, oh, you can see all the people commenting, asking for stuff, and it's just being delivered. So handy.
So handy. We've like a little hack for anyone who's listening. Like, we get calls booked so quickly off the back of our ManyChat sequences. And the thing that we do is so simple. We like have the simplest version of the ManyChat funnels. I've got a client who has spent like $10,000 optimizing his ManyChat funnels, and they're like insane. He's got like 1 to 5 slider bars and like all this other cool stuff. I'm like, man, that's so intense and I love it. And also I'm just too lazy for that. So one thing, like, so we just get their email and then we just send them the document. Super simple, like very easy kind of automation. And then from there, in the document that we send them, every single one of our documents, at the very top of the document, just has highlighted, like, if you want XYZ outcome, book a call here. And it's at the top and it's at the bottom of every document that we have. And we just get, cause like, you're right. They opt in for the thing because they want that problem solved. And then if you also position the call as an additional way to solve the problem or take the next step in the problem, we've just been like getting so many additional calls booked that way. Probably like at least 5 extra calls a week just from that, like doing nothing else. No sell by chat, no appointment setting, like none of that stuff. Just very, very casually dropping an extra like reminder to book a call.
Yeah. And as you say, that's the thing. It's like so many people get nervous, like, oh, at what point is it okay for me to ask and do this? And it's like, well, if someone wants something and they have a problem that they want solved, the answer is all the time. Like, again, but if you're not putting call to actions out there to offer it to them, if you're not sharing that you can help them get results and you're not saying, hey, here's how you can book and get a call, like, it's not a surprise that the results aren't coming in. Like, to me, when I ever look at people's ads, they're like, why is this not getting this outcome? I look at it, I'm like, you don't tell anyone that you have something that helps them. Like, they tell this story in their ad and it's like perfectly crafted. And then where's the call to action? Like, click this to give your details, click this to send me a message and get this outcome. Oh, like, yeah, should I put that in there? I'm like, it's a human being. Like, if they want, like, to tell them what happens next, otherwise they've got to be like, maybe if I message you about this, this will solve this problem, potentially, hopefully. Like, yeah. You've got to tell them, otherwise nothing's ever going to happen.
Yeah. And just like the things that people name their stuff, like, I think like it's just such an easy win. Like, just don't call it a discovery call. Just don't call it that. Just call it literally anything that's not that. Like, that's like got to do with an outcome, like an online fitness assessment. Like, just call it something good that someone actually wants to do. and then, give them a little bit of that and also show them how you can solve all their problems. But like, yeah, it blows my mind. People are like, or you will know. I mean, I know Facebook still does this, but like learn, like people don't want to learn. They don't want to learn. They want you to solve their problem and they want it quick and fast and they'll pay for the expedition of that result. And so like, it's so interesting the way that just like those little language nuances, like just asking or just telling somebody to do something actually completely changes the outcome.
100%. So true. Now, Steph, you and I could probably jam out for many an hour on this sort of stuff. So I wanted to make sure that I respect your time and keep this nice and concise. So is there anything that I didn't ask you so far today that I should have asked you?
I don't think so. In saying that, yes, one thing for anyone listening, you can't rely on one channel. I personally don't think so. I don't think that we live in a place anymore where, I mean, you can if you are super duper niche. Like, I found out about a guy today who apparently solves people's like credit reports, like fix their credit reports. He's making like $200K a month and he just uses Instagram. But I'm like, yeah, but obviously, because it's just so niche and like just even referrals for that and affiliates would just be huge. Like, I don't think he's just making $200K a month from Instagram. Like, he's making it from so many other places. But I think that an omnipresent approach or the omni-channel approach is really what has helped us to grow our business to this point. So like, yeah, it's cool that you're doing cool organic content on Instagram, but you do need to be running ads 100%. You need to be running like the top, middle and bottom of funnel ads. You need to be creating like value on YouTube, a video a month or something like that, which is also such a great lead magnet for everything else that you do, which is so easy. Like, we have a podcast, we send emails every day. We're just about to start on Twitter and Threads. And so like the more places that you can be, the more in someone's face that you are, the faster that know, like, and trust is going to build. And the sooner you'll take them from like cold to sold. And I think that currently our cold to sold timeframe is like 52 days. At best, it can be up to 3 days. So 3 days for someone to find us and then to buy from us. And we have quite an expensive high ticket product. So it's crazy. Like, when you just create enough pressure point, enough warmth throughout the process and by being everywhere.
100%. As you say. And I think the biggest thing for everyone there is like the main thing is like all of this is to optimize like know, like, and trust. As soon as you have that, a sales process is easy, can be refined. Getting more people in can be easy, but you have to have those key elements, because otherwise it's like, if you can bring people in with the best content and get them to DM you, but if they don't trust you enough to go to the next step, it's like, it's never going to work. So as I say, kudos to you and Tim have done a phenomenal job in like building a great ecosystem to like allow for that to kind of grow. Cause then it's like, as you say, then it's just more channels, more eyeballs. You're just basically stacking it up and building it higher and higher. So yeah, amazing to see what you guys have done.
Well, so much of it credit goes to you, Kim, because I don't think either of us knew how to run an ad before we met you. And now, Tim is like a little wizard with ads. So I don't think we knew how to send an email. I don't think we were definitely not marketing people Tim was just a fitness bro and I was just some girl that worked at Aldi who was just trying to figure it out. So much of what we've learned has come from you. So thank you.
No, my absolute pleasure. I think you guys are a little bit further ahead than that, but I'll take that. And so if anyone's listened to this and said, cool, I want to see what like you and Tim are up to and how things are going in your world, where's the best place for them to connect with you online?
Yeah, look, come check us out or check me out at Steph Gorton on Instagram. But our podcast is super fun and we share heaps of we only just started a podcast together recently and it's been so fun. So if you want to kind of see what goes on behind the scenes of a multi-7-figure coaching business with two people who have really still figuring out what we're doing, then you're welcome to come and have a listen to our podcast. It's called the Success School Podcast.
Awesome. Perfect. So guys, share this episode with someone. If you know someone who's maybe been going like, I've been trying to figure out what to do with content and stuff like that, and they've just been confused and chucking stuff against the wall and see what sticks, share this with them so they can hear some of Steph's wisdom and see what it's all about. And I highly recommend you guys go and check out the podcast as well. It is amazing. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for listening. Steph, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.